While with the squadron, Tim made a number of bombing raids over enemy territory to places like Milan, Leverhausen, Berlin, Nuremberg, Modena, Mannheim, Hanover, Kassel, Frankfurt and Leipzig. First squadron raid was to Milan to prepare Mussolini for the coming invasion of Italy.
Our first aircraft went to us and we were 20 minutes late in taking off, and we were something like 9 minutes late on a bombing run, and to have made that time up, right, 11 minutes, took a little bit of doing, because it meant we were using more petrol than we would normally have used, and that's why when we got back, both the outboard engines were cooked because we were out of fuel.
504 aircraft, 321 Lancasters and 183 Halifaxes were dispatched to Milan that night and carried out a successful raid. Only 2 Halifaxes and 1 Lancaster were lost. Tim went on 2 raids to the city of Kassel in Germany during October 1943, the first on the 3rd with Jeff Perks, and the second on the 22nd, this time as the flight engineer for Flight Sergeant Snellgrove. Tim's name can be seen entered here in Flight Sergeant Snellgrove's flying log for the raid over Kassel. Tim was good friends with Sam, Flight Sergeant Snellgrove's engineer, and when he was taken ill, Tim took his place on the raid. "547 aircraft attacked Kassel on the 3rd of October, but due to a restricted view due to haze, the main weight of the attack fell on the western suburbs and outlying villages. 24 aircraft were lost. On the 22nd of October, 569 aircraft attacked Kassel, 247 of them Halifaxes. The raid was especially accurate and concentrated. The result was the most devastating attack on a German city since the first fire raid of Hamburg in July. The fires were so concentrated that there was a firestorm, although not as extensive as the Hamburg one. But the German controller was also successful in assessing the target, and the night fighters were waiting. 43 aircraft were lost, 7.6% of the force. Losses in Bomber Command were horrendous, nowhere more so than in 434 Squadron. Between August 1943 and February 1944, just 6 months, 43 crews, a total of 313 officers and airmen failed to return, representing a casualty rate of 11.8% of the 364 sorties completed. As the squadron average aircrew strength was about 248 men, those losses meant the squadron was wiped out 1.5 times. On the 27th of August 1943, 674 aircraft, 349 Lancasters, 221 Halifaxes and 104 Stirlings were sent on a raid to Nuremberg. The initial Pathfinder markers were accurate, but a creepback quickly developed. The master bomber could do little to persuade the main force to move their bombing forward. Only a quarter of the crews heard his broadcast. A total of 33 aircraft were lost that night. Tim's squadron was particularly hard hit.
We lost 12 that day out of 16, and normally I think with 20 aeroplanes, whenever they could provide them, we got 4 back with probably 4 on the ground, so it meant that the squadron then had 8 aeroplanes to play with.
Tim made and lost friends in a very short space of time.
Sergeant Boscott was an engineer and a crew on 434 Squadron, and we were friends because all the engineers mucked in together, and unfortunately they came back. I'd been on the same raid. They come back and they said, well, he was lying in the rest bay. He'd collapsed, and anyway they took him out the aeroplane, and when they come to examine him he was dead, and he got this very thin silver hack into his heart, and it was like a needle, and it killed him straight away. And that was his lot. Well, Squadron Leader Rocky had a good crew, a Canadian pilot. Used to go for a drink with the lads. His engineer was a very good friend of mine, and they bailed out beginning of 1944. They got hit by a flak, set two of their engines on fire, and they bailed out. And all 6 or 7 crew got taken prisoner of war.
Out of the 5 of them were shot down. Lord Linnell and I were the 2 flight commanders, and we were both shot down pretty close to Berlin. It was the worst night that our squadron had had. Usually you didn't get away scot-free without losing 1 or 2, mostly 1, but that night 5. So it must have been a good night for the night fighters, I'm sure. They were pretty busy. Now,
The only thing I said, Bomber Rice came and he shook hands with me, did Bomber Rice. He came to 434 Squadron at Talpo. Because we had, on that occasion, we had the highest misses of any squadron in Bomber Command. Would anyone else ever achieve it? I have no idea to this day.
There was only one CHOP squadron in the Royal Canadian Air Force, 434 Squadron. It was called CHOP Squadron because its loss rate was completely beyond the realm of statistical probability.
Germany surrendered on the 8th of May 1945. Tim was with 199 Squadron at Royal Air Force North Creek and back in the front line, halfway through his second tour of operations. By the time the war had ended, Bomber Command had lost more than 55,000 aircrew and 9,000 aircraft. Out of any given 100 aircrew in Bomber Command, only 24 survived unharmed. Tim was one of the lucky ones. The Royal Air Force Thorthorpe lies just 12 miles northeast of the centre of York. On the Thorthorpe village green sits a monument to the crews that served there. The airfield was abandoned at the end of the war and used for private flying, but by the 90s farming had all but erased the home of 434 and 420 Squadron's Royal Canadian Air Force. All that's left there now are memories.
This country is at war with Germany.
They served the wind, and now they are going to reap the whirlwind, 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 whirlwind,
But
whirlwind.
I know we'll meet again some sunny day.
James Tim Tyler passed away peacefully on the 16th of September 2010, 65 years after World War II ended. He was 89 years old. Members of his family were at his bedside. Happy landings, Dad.
But if the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour.